In football, there are fun moments, brilliant moments, funny moments, great moments, but there are also really disrespectful moments. Here are the top 10 most disrespectful moments in football. And we start with Luis Suarez, one of the biggest shithousers of the modern game. It was the Merseyside derby back in 2012. Before that game, the Everton boss, David Moyes, made a big statement calling the Liverpool striker a diver and saying he made people lose interest in the Premier League. Suarez didn't like that at all, so how did he respond? By diving right in front of Moyes to celebrate his goal in the derby. Liverpool fans called that the greatest celebration ever, and you just know that that must have stung the veteran manager real bad. But Moyes is not the only OG manager who has felt disrespected. The special one has too, spoiler alert, on more than one occasion. This time though, he was Man United boss and was going up against his former team, Chelsea. Mourinho really wanted to get a win on his return to Stamford Bridge, and it looked like he was going to get just that, with United leading minutes to the end of the game. But Ross Barkley had other ideas. The midfielder grabbed a late equalizer to rain on Jose's parade. A late equalizer is always painful, but what made it more painful for Mourinho was the disrespect that followed. Marco Ianni, who was a second assistant at Chelsea, jumped off his seat and rushed to celebrate wildly in front of the away dugout where Mourinho was seated. Mourinho couldn't sit and take the disrespect, so he jumped off his seat and ran to confront Ianni, which led to a brawl breaking out at the entrance to the Chelsea tunnel. Everybody got involved and it wasn't a good sight. You know what else wasn't a good sight? Watching a player repeatedly say no to an order from the boss on live TV. It would have been bad enough if this happened in the dressing room, but this happened on the pitch during a final, and that made the disrespect even bigger. We're talking about the infamous incident involving Kepa and Sarri. It was the 2019 EFL Cup final. Chelsea had held Man City to a goalless draw, so the game was headed to penalties. With seconds left on the clock, Kepa appeared to go down with an injury, so Sarri summoned Willy Caballero to replace the Chelsea number 1. Caballero was on the touchline ready to come on, but Kepa insisted he would not come off. He wagged his finger, yelled, gave the thumbs up. He did literally everything to make sure he would not come off. This delayed the game for minutes, and the referee even had to intervene so that the game could go on. Sarri was incensed. He tore his jacket open, threw something on the chair, walked towards the exit door and then back. He couldn't believe that his own player was undermining his authority in front of the whole world. Rudiger had to restrain the boss from giving the goalie a piece of his mind right there and then. Sarri could go on coaching for a century and he would still never witness the manner of disrespect from his own player during a major final. Although Kepa would go on to save a penalty in the shootout, Chelsea eventually lost the game to remove whatever silver lining there could have been. But if you think a player disrespecting the coach is bad, what then would you think of the club captain disrespecting the fans? Crazy, right? But we saw it happen live in the Premier League back in 2019. Arsenal might be having a good season right now, but we all know it wasn't always like that. Back in 2019, the North London club was having a really up and down season, and the fans were so fed up. It all came to a head in one of those derbies against Crystal Palace. Arsenal had taken a 2-goal lead in the opening 20 minutes, but threw it all away and allowed Palace back in the game. The fans were furious and took it all out on the leader of the team, Granit Xhaka. Xhaka became increasingly frustrated and was eventually subbed off. While he was walking towards the dugout, he was booed and jeered by the home fans. And Xhaka was in no mood to be the bigger person, so he lashed out. Instead of ignoring the taunts, the Swiss midfielder cupped his ears, took off his shirt and appeared to yell the F word towards the fans. It's one thing for a player to do that, but for the club captain to do that to the home fans, that was a huge disrespect to the club as a whole. Xhaka was stripped of captaincy because of that, but we have to say we really do love his redemption arc. Anyway, let's leave the Premier League and go to the French League 1 for the next one. This was back in 2014 in a game between Rennes and Reims. Rennes forward Paul-Georges Ntep found himself in front of an open net, and instead of just simply playing a simple shot to score, the Cameroonian opted for something more dramatic. He stopped the ball, went down on all fours and then used his head to nudge it into the net. As a Rennes fan, that must have been really pleasant to watch, but as a Reims fan, you must have found that really disrespectful. Let's now head to the World Cup. Qatar 2022 truly had everything, including one of the most disrespectful moments ever. In that shocker of a game between Saudi Arabia and Argentina, we saw Ali Al-Balahi, a Saudi defender, slap Messi on the back and say, "You will not win." Slapping the GOAT and addressing him like that was just so disrespectful. Good thing Messi eventually made him eat his words in that tournament. Since we're on the World Cup topic, let's throw it back to Spain of '82, where we had another crazy upset with Algeria beating Germany 2-1 in their opening game. Now, the disrespect shown here was not a player, a manager, the fans, or even the referee, it was to the game itself. With all other matches concluded by the time Germany squared off against Austria in the final game, both teams knew that all that was needed to guarantee passage into the next round for both of them was a win for Germany by 1 or 2 goals. So what did they do? They went on to put up one of the most disrespectful performances to the game of football. After Germany took a lead in the 10th minute, the game pretty much stopped. Both sets of players deliberately missed chances and played like they had no interest in the game. The disrespect to the sport was so obvious in that game that it was dubbed the disgrace of Gijon. Anyway, let's now circle back to the Premier League, and would you believe it, it brings us back to Chelsea again. In fact, disrespect would be an understatement when describing the behaviour of some Chelsea fans. During the 2012 FA Cup semi-final against Spurs, their actions were downright despicable. During a moment's silence held in memory of the Hillsborough disaster victims before kickoff, some sections of the fans began to boo relentlessly, and some even yelled "murderers." Because of this, the referee had to cut the moment of silence short just 25 seconds in. That was outright disgraceful from the Chelsea fans to the 96 people who lost their lives in that disaster. More recently, we saw another instance when the disrespect came out from the stands. In the aftermath of the North London derby this season, we saw a Spurs fan come down from the stands to kick the Arsenal goalkeeper, Aaron Ramsdale. No matter how emotional you get, it should never result in disrespect and violence towards the opposition, or anybody else for that matter. To wrap this video up, is this special one yet again. Now coach of Roma, Mourinho faced one of the biggest disrespects we have ever seen on live TV. Yes, we all know how Jose can be sometimes, but this time he had every right to be mad. It was hard to determine what exactly he was so mad at during the game against Cremonese that warranted him reacting in such a way that he got sent off. But after the match, video evidence showed what the 4th official said to Mourinho. "They all take the piss out of you, go home." Oh wow. But that wasn't even all. We heard the English commentator say, once again, the Roma manager has disgraced himself on the touchline. If I were Mourinho, I too wouldn't take it. No way, Jose. Are there more disrespectful football moments? Share with us in the comments.